Hey everybody, it's Allie and welcome to our Y&R chat for Sunday, November 17th, 2013. We started out our Veterans Day week with Nikki's Veterans Benefit, which took place at a nightclub. Yeah, because nothing quite says honoring our servicemen like a dirty, dingy old warehouse nightclub with bad plumbing, bad electrical, and freezers that don't work. I cannot even believe that she held it there. The underground looks like it smells like cigarette smoke. I can't even believe that if she's holding a $100,000 plus benefit that she would not take it to some place like the Colonnade Room. And it's so weird because Nikki, I think it was Nikki, somebody even mentioned the Colonnade Room this week, which we never see. The Colonnade Room, I can't even remember the last time we actually saw that set. It gets mentioned every so often in passing, but why would she not choose to bring it upscale a little bit? If I'm paying $1,000 plus for a benefit, I should at least get a nice plate, like a nice meal. There's nothing about the underground that says class. It was so dark. There were like 4 veterans there. I'm looking in the crowd. It was this small, dinky crowd. It felt like such a downer to me. I would think you would want to lift it up, but no. Oh, well. Dylan is the whole reason for this entire event, as we all know. He has a personal invitation from Nikki to attend. In fact, she would, I think, love to have him speak. She would love to get him involved. And both Snitch and Avery are separately trying to convince Dylan to attend this benefit. They think it's going to be good for him. It's going to be good for everyone else. And Dylan doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to end up being there and being perceived as the poster boy for PTSD. I'm sure that everything that happened with Connor had to have made the local papers, I'm assuming. So I'm sure people know what he did, and he finds it as a source of embarrassment. He doesn't want to open up his old wounds. He doesn't feel like the ideal soldier, and so he doesn't want to go there and represent. And I mean, that's completely understandable, of course, but Nikki is at the event. She's hosting. She's waiting impatiently to see if her long-lost son is going to walk right into her love trap, because that's exactly what it is. Would Nikki be hosting a veterans event out of the blue if it weren't for her trying to become connected to Dylan? I don't think so. But there's no sign of him. It doesn't seem like he's going to show up. Nikki is disappointed, of course. She's gone to all this trouble and Dylan didn't take her bait. But it's still for a good cause. A lot of people in Genoa City ended up showing up, including Leslie and Neil. And I was really shocked and delighted to see Leslie, who knows Nikki's secret, kind of getting ballsy with her. Leslie was like, you should tell Dylan. It's not fair that you're keeping this secret from him. And Nikki's like, not happy about the fact that this outsider now knows her big secret. She feels a little threatened by it. Even the fact that Leslie would mention it to her in public. And she's like, are you going to tell my secret? And Leslie, I just liked seeing her get a little bit aggressive on Nikki and pretty much saying, I'll keep your secret for now. but you need to reveal it sooner or later, which I totally agree. I think going this roundabout way of trying to get close with Dylan is only going to make it worse in the long run. I think Nikki believes she's doing the right thing by just trying to find an in with him, but he is going to resent the lie. He would have been able to handle it a little better, I think, if there hadn't been this precursor that Nikki is setting up. That's just my opinion. I don't know. But at the event, another thing that I was kind of delighted to see was the fact that Jack was there and they actually acknowledged his Vietnam service. See, that was always an odd storyline because we never saw that part. I think it was mid-90s, the storyline came up and it started representing Jack as a Vietnam veteran. And it was all a plot to bring in this new family for Jack. It became revealed that Jack had an affair with a Vietnamese woman while he was in the service. They had a son together, and Lon, the woman, and Chemo, Jack's son, came to Genoa City. Jack and Lon had this such a romantic relationship. She was kind of a delicate woman outside of, much in the way of Victor and Hope. Lon had no understanding of this type of harsh business world, and Jack took care of her and loved her, and the son Chemo was, I think, very resentful at first, but they grew to love each other. But Lon ended up getting a disease. I can't remember. This is all from my memory. I have such a selective memory. Some things I'll remember, some things I won't, but I found it to be touching. Lon got some kind of disease and she died, and Chemo tried to stay around. I believe Chemo was working at Jabot for a while, and then he totally dropped off the scene. Y&R never acknowledged it, and they just never bring it up whatsoever. So if any of you guys are newer Y&R viewers, Jack has a whole nother son that I wish they would just bring back. The actor, Philip Moon, I believe is his name. I think he does a lot of TV, and I think he works on other shows on CBS, so bring him back. But I was shocked to see Y&R acknowledge that, and we don't even really think about Jack as being a veteran. He never, I don't know, it's just I almost don't see it. But it was there, and I appreciated that Y&R brought it back up. So everyone's there, ready to donate. Everyone except the guest of honor, Dylan, is not there. Victor decides to MC. MC Victor takes the mic and decides to make a speech. Nikki has no idea that he's going to do this, but he stands up there in front of everyone and tells them how much he appreciates the veterans' service and that a lot of times we don't do enough to honor them. So Victor announces that he is going to institute a hire a vet type program at Newman Chancellor. He said, all of you vets, I encourage you to come down and apply for a job at Newman Chancellor. And it was a very nice gesture. Victor got visibly choked up during his speech, but the thing is, no one said you were guaranteed the job. Just so you know, the caveat is you can apply for the job, but there's no guarantee that you're going to get it. And also, there was no mention of what that job might be. I just imagine Victor's having all these vets in the hallways of Newman Enterprises sweeping up the floor and whatnot. I don't know. I'm just kidding. It was definitely a nice gesture, and everyone seemed touched by it. But now it's time for Nikki's speech. She's the chairwoman, she's the hostess, and she gets up there and she really does speak from her heart. It was a good speech. She just talked about how different people from different walks of life have different struggles. She talked about her MS and how she has come to deal with that, and she knows veterans have a lot of issues that they need to deal with too. And the whole thing had a very appreciative ring about it. I honestly thought at one point that she was going to break out into the chorus of Wind Beneath My Wings. It was a very Bette Midler moment. But I loved it. I thought it was great. And of course, Dylan shows up during her speech, and she sees him just as she's mentioning, the importance of having family around you. And it was the ideal outcome for her, I think. Dylan, he is still struggling. He was there not in uniform, by the way. He felt very awkward. This is not his place. He didn't have confidence, and he never really has when it's come to his military service. Nikki, after she finishes her speech, is overjoyed to see him there. Nick and Victor, not so much. Nick obviously has reasons for disliking Dylan, although ultimately it was Avery's choice to end the relationship with Nick. It wasn't Dylan's fault. Dylan came back into town and he was very aggressive and open, actually, about wanting Avery back, but when she said no, he backed off and he decided to move on with his life. So Nick, I think the blame should be a little more on Avery than Dylan. Victor is totally hypocritical. Victor seems to really hate Dylan, and I don't know what it is he has against him, really. Every time Victor seems to mention Dylan, it is in the context of the fact that he's the man who ruined Nicholas's relationship. But Victor doesn't seem to hold that against Avery. Victor seems to still like Avery, so why is all of that? Why is all of that baggage on Dylan for Avery and Nick's marriage breaking up? Or marriage plans breaking up? I just don't get it. Victoria seemed to reel Victor back in a little bit, saying, he's a good friend to Billy right now. Why don't you just give him a break? And Victor had that moment where he walked in on Nikki crying around Dylan, so I'm sure that plays into it, but why aren't Nikki and Victor communicating more? Why is Victor putting all of his hatred onto Dylan instead of just talking to his wife and finding out what's going on with her? There's such a huge gap in Nikki and Victor's relationship. We need to see them connecting, Y&R. Are you telling me that Nikki is going through all of this? Every night they go to bed together and she doesn't talk about what's bothering her? He doesn't ask? And they can just go on like this? It doesn't make sense. Y&R really does need to address some intimacy between Nikki and Victor. All Victor does is bark, 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 and he's coming off as the bad guy. We need to see a little bit from his perspective. I was glad to see Victoria kind of at least presenting another side of the coin to him. And another interesting thing was that Victoria was introduced to Snitch for the first time, and I thought, I wonder if that could be an interesting pair. Like, we all know, and I'll talk about later, the problems that are going on within Billy and Victoria's relationship, and we have questions as to whether or not Billy is gonna be able to continue on with his marriage. I wonder if in the future Victoria is going to seek comfort from Snitch or from Dylan. I don't know. I'm wondering, just having seen Victoria become a little bit close with Dylan, a little bit, kind of introduction with Snitch, I'm wondering if there's any possibility that a romantic connection will develop there. And we all know that one of them is her brother. Presumably the surface story is that Dylan is secretly Victoria's brother. Is it possible that Victoria and Dylan will become involved romantically and that will finally be what forces Nikki to tell the truth? I don't know. Could it be Snitch that she becomes involved with? Because I'm telling you, I have had a hard time accepting Dylan as Nikki's son, and there's a huge part of me that just thinks that it's a red herring. Y&R announced this week that the actor announced this week that the guy who plays Snitch, and I apologize, I don't know his name, but he's been brought on as a full contract actor actor. So he's going to be around for a while. And that tells me there's a plan for him. And in the back of my head, I just keep thinking, maybe we're going to see a switcheroo. Is it possible that Stitch could end up actually being the son in the long run? I don't know, but I'm just speculating. So toward the end of the Veterans event, Dylan started to slowly come out of his shell, and he had a moment where he sort of informally began talking to everyone, and slowly everyone sort of quieted down and began listening to him. He's really speaking from the heart about the realities of war and of post-war trauma, and talking about also the importance of finding a support system. So it did seem as if, even though Dylan didn't want to go to the event, he eventually came around and was able to find some level of value in it. As he's talking, Nikki is just looking on at her son. So proud that this son that she had but really had no involvement in raising ended up turning out to be such a good person. And likewise, we also had Avery looking on at Dylan, seeing him as this man that she's falling back in love with. Ooh, Avery got a cute new haircut. It's significantly shorter. I mean, her hair was like mid-back length, wasn't it? Now it's right at her shoulders. It's very chic. It's very cute. I want to know what you guys think about Avery's new hair. Let me know. I mean, the actress is gorgeous. It doesn't matter what she does. She could shave her head and still be gorgeous. But I thought it was nice. You know, maybe time for a change. Time for maybe a maturing of the character, at least. Although I'm sure everything that the actors do is not related to the characters, but you know, I'm here to read into everything, so yes, a maturing of the character. After the Veterans event, we started seeing a lot of interaction between Avery and Dylan, and they're slow coming back together. They talked a little bit, Avery actually told Dylan at the coffee house after the event that all of this talk of the military service really brought back a lot of memories for her. There was a time when she thought that he was dead, and it was very difficult for her to get through that. But I think in her thinking about the military service, it naturally got her thinking about their past love and everything that they shared with one another, and their song, They Want Something More Than This, right? That is the Dylan and Avery song. I was like, oh, cue the music. They share this passionate kiss together, thinking about their past and everything they shared. And the next day, Avery can't stop thinking about it. Dylan's definitely still thinking about it. He wants to get back together with her. Avery is the one that put the brakes on. She is the one that's hesitant, and it's in part, I believe, because she doesn't want to get into a relationship so soon after everything that's happened with Nick. In Y&R time, it can't have been more than a month, I'm assuming. And I think Avery doesn't want to hurt Nick further or cheapen their time together or have the appearance of that. Until she goes to the coffee house and she sees Nick and Sharon there together, and they're being all cute, and there's this realization of, oh, they're kind of getting close again. Nick ended up calling Sharon to the coffee house because she had left a bracelet, and I think he said it somehow ended up in his pillow or something, I don't know, but from a distance, not having known what happened with the freezer and everything that's happened, with Nick and Sharon, that's very innocent. As an onlooker, Avery seemed to believe that they were actually getting back together, overhears it, and there was awkwardness all around. They had a little three-way meeting, and Nick is still bitter toward her. I think Avery tried to extend a little bit of an olive branch, and Nick was just like, I don't know you any kind of explanation, walks out. Sharon did try to approach Avery. I think Avery is not necessarily jumping to believing anything that comes out of Sharon's mouth. I mean, really, if you put Avery, Dylan, Sharon, and Nick in a room together, there are layers upon layers of awkwardness. Nick cannot stand Dylan. Avery is carrying this secret. Only she knows that they're actually brothers. Not to mention that you have the Avery and Sharon feud going on. You have Sharon and Dylan and their friendship and Dylan's interest in Faith. In fact, there was this scene where Faith comes up to the counter at the coffee house and, I don't know, I think she got a cookie or something, and mentions to Dylan just briefly that she really wants a dollhouse. And Dylan takes note of this and realizes that he can make her a dollhouse. He's a carpenter. And so he decides this is going to be kind of a sweet little gesture. We're going to see from the previews of next week's show, I believe it's going to be Monday's episode, Dylan is going to end up taking this dollhouse out to Sharon's house to give it as a gift to Faith, and Nick flips out. And I guess on some level, I know that Dylan was just trying to do something nice, but he also should have known that it wouldn't be well received. Dylan misses his son, I believe, and or who he thought was his son. He misses Connor. He misses having that connection with the child. He feels probably good with children. He feels connected to Faith and to Sharon. There was also a scene, and this is not the first recently, but a scene between Dylan and Sharon where they're kind of just talking to one another and getting to know and support. And Dylan actually said, Sharon, you seem to be maybe the only one who understands me right now. Maybe the only one who understands what I'm going through. And I wonder if we're kind of getting back toward a possible Sharon, Dylan, Avery triangle. Because remember when Dylan first came onto the scene, it seemed a little bit like maybe Dylan and Sharon could be a match, and then it kind of skewed off. It was around the time he was doing that work at her house, and he was connecting with Faith, and we kind of got off track with that. But I just wonder if we're going to see part 2 of the Avery-Sharon feud in fighting over Dylan. I don't know. I feel that I like Avery and Dylan together. I think that they had a good chemistry right from the beginning. The problem is going to be, all things being equal, Dylan might not be able to forgive Avery for keeping this secret. Yes, she is bound by attorney-client privilege, but Dylan is going to be touchy about any type of lie, especially after what Chelsea pulled on him. So I'm wondering if, as much progress as Dylan and Avery are making in their relationship, I wonder if it's going to be dashed when he finds out this truth and that Avery knew about it. And is it possible he's going to run to Sharon? Not sure. There's definitely something to be said for that. Now, Dylan, for the short time that he's been in town, he definitely has a trail of women, possibilities and ones that he's had. Dylan runs into Chelsea, literally runs right past her and sees her at Chancellor Park. Where else? He sees Chelsea standing there with Connor, and he inquires about the baby. He clearly misses him, clearly is hurt by the fact that he's growing up so quickly, and these are moments that he's missed in the child's life. But Chelsea is very kind toward him. She actually tells him that Adam is no longer trying to fight her for full custody of the child, and has to awkwardly reveal that she is still staying with Adam. So even though Chelsea tried to play it off a little bit, there is this presumption in Dylan's mind that Chelsea is moving on with Adam. They are a family. Maybe that's how it should be, and maybe that gives him a little bit of a push to move on with his life. Now, I'm going to shock you all by giving a compliment to Chelsea in that scene in the park. I don't know if it was Friday's episode or what, but she's holding Connor. She looked gorgeous. I mean, I couldn't even believe it. I was like, oh my gosh, Chelsea, she's wearing this wine-colored leather jacket with like this matching wine-colored, I don't know if it was a collar or a scarf. She was holding the baby, so I couldn't see exactly how it was put together. But girl looked amazing. I could do without the French braids. Okay, YNR, okay, hair people at YNR, let's take a break from the French braids. We got it. It was kind of cute maybe over the summer. I mean, did you see Nikki's French braid at the Veterans Benefit? It was so complex. It was the most complex braid I think I've ever seen. We need to, I don't want to have to talk about these French braids anymore. It's a little much. Let's move on. But, the shocking thing, I thought you guys would be proud of me. Me paying a compliment to Chelsea? Victor bumps into Sharon at the athletic club this week, and we get part 2 of Victor's vicious attack on Sharon. Right in public, he's just there ripping into her, saying, I know what you're up to. You got yourself locked in a freezer with Nicholas. You're obviously trying to get back together with him. I mean, I can see why Victor would think that. Sharon has done some bad things to their family, but they've done some bad things to her. He always has to make her feel isolated and say, your son's a Newman, you'll never be a Newman. It's like Sharon is so weak that I don't want Sharon to be weak, but the fact is she's in a weak spot right now, and Victor always has to just hold her down. It's like the equivalent of a bully just holding someone's head down while she's trying to struggle and fight, and she has no hope of fighting back. It is mean. Adam ends up coming into their conversation and rushing to Sharon's defense. Now, I thought that was an interesting little engagement, but I'm not sure how much of it was about Sharon for Adam and how much of it was actually about opposing Victor. I think Adam didn't like to see Victor picking on Sharon. It's the same way as Nick did last week. It's wrong, I think, for Victor to continue to pick on Sharon. Yeah, she's done some bad things to your family. You should really, the right thing to do would just be to ignore her, freeze her out. You don't have to berate her in public. I was happy to see Adam come to her defense, and I'm happy to see Adam and Sharon being on friendly terms right now. He even kind of said he was concerned about Sharon maybe being involved with Nick. But Sharon comes back and says, she wants to rescue herself this time. She doesn't want to always have someone to come to defend her. She wants to defend herself. And there was this very symbolic scene of Sharon going in to the restaurant, sitting at the bar, ordering, I think they just gave her a glass of water, and she sits down and pulls her pills out of her bag and just kind of ceremoniously almost takes one and swallows it. She decides that she wants to be better. This is her decision. She's not taking the pills because someone else is forcing her to do it. She's taking them because she genuinely wants to get better. And I thought there was this really, really cute and unexpected scene at that bar between Sharon and Hillary. Sharon had overheard Neil giving a pep talk to Hillary and telling her about, second chances and how she deserves one. And Sharon just looks over at Hillary and says, good luck in this town. From one outsider to another, these people can be vicious. Good luck with your second chance. That didn't work out so well for me. What I've decided to do is pay attention to how I feel about myself, not about what other people think of me. And the fact that I'm comfortable with myself is what actually matters. And it was a nice little chunk of wisdom to pass on to Hillary, but also it was a signal of Sharon's growing strength. I think that a lot of Sharon's problems stem from a lack of self-esteem. And with the new writers firmly in place now, maybe Sharon's fans are actually going to get what we've been asking for, a Sharon who practices self-love instead of self-pity. And self-destruction. Let's not forget Sharon's penchant for self-destruction. Well, moving on. This week, Chelsea ends up talking to Victoria and tells her, despite what Adam asked her not to, Chelsea tells Victoria that Adam is also looking for the driver. I think Chelsea wants to be able to offer something. She's been given this huge gift of her child's eyesight, and she wants to be able to say that they're helping too. And as soon as Victoria hears that, she ends up going to Adam and like bursting through the door and squeezing out a thank you to him. It seemed almost like it pained her to say thank you for anything toward Adam. And I think this is like the first time that we've seen Victoria go to see Adam at all. Has she even seen Connor at all? Patricia has called and left voicemails acknowledging that none of the Newmans seem to be at all interested, well, besides Victor, in Connor. Why isn't Victoria going to see her child's brother? Why is she so uninvolved? And even her coming to see Adam, it felt so almost backhanded. It felt like a backhanded thank you. I think she was trying. I think Victoria doesn't really want to show any vulnerability to Adam whatsoever. She just had this stiffness and this coldness toward him, but she did try to open up a little bit. She mentioned to Adam that Billy is having a really hard time right now, that all he seems to want to do is sit on his computer and go onto message boards and talk to other people who've lost children. And as soon as she mentioned that, I knew exactly what Adam was gonna do. When Victoria leaves, Adam goes online and starts poking around in message boards, presumably looking for Billy's posts. I am assuming that Adam is trying to get an idea of Billy's frame of mind, but you better make sure that your IP address isn't traceable. I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole if I was trying to get away with this crime, which again sort of reinforces for me, I wonder if Adam really wants to get caught. I wonder if he wants this decision to just be taken out of his hands. Victor is still, again, totally concerned over who killed Delia and the hit-and-run driver, but unconcerned about many other things in his life, his wife. I mean, it's ridiculous. He found, the private eye found a witness. It's a witness who is new, a new witness. And the person saw the whole thing and was able to tell the private eye that whoever did it was driving a black SUV, and the first letter of the license plate on the car was a G. So we're narrowing down into who, Victor finding out who it is. My question is, apparently this mystery witness won't come forward because he's in legal trouble. I don't know if it's someone who's escaped from jail or who has a warrant out for their arrest or whatever, but I just have to mention that everyone is going on and on about how horrible the hit-and-run driver is. And yes, of course, it's horrible to hit and run on a child, of course. But let's focus on this new witness for a second. Having evidence to this hit and run of a child and not coming forward is equally as horrible. So I just want to put that into perspective there. Now, apparently the private eye did a search on black SUVs with the first letter of a license plate that's G, and it came up with none. It's either the witness is wrong or something. But Victor's hearing this information, and he says, well, it was dark. Maybe it wasn't a G. Maybe it was a 6. Run that search again, and of course we see a close-up of a parking space, with a car in a parking space with the black SUV where the first letter of the license plate is 6, and there's a little nameplate underneath it that says Adam Newman. So we know that Victor is like inches from finding out. And I think that Adam's supposed guilt is going to converge in a number of ways. We have Victor very, very close to finding out. I think Chelsea is very close to finding out. Patricia had left me a voicemail last week and mentioned that Chelsea knows Adam's tricks. Chelsea knows how Adam thinks, and I think eventually she could figure this whole thing out. But then there's also Detective Chavez's hunch. Last week, he had that conversation with Adam in the steam room and came out of it with a new idea. He's rifling through papers. We didn't see any of that this week, but I am going to wager a guess that we're going to see Adam presumed guilty of this crime, only later to reveal that he didn't do it. I mean, is it possible that Adam did it? I just don't think so. At the same time, I do not know what happened to Delia. If Adam didn't do it, what did happen to Delia? And another awesome voicemail I got this week from Gary, totally like taking me back to the night of Delia's death and making me realize, and this was his point, why didn't Adam see Delia when he stopped the car? Could he not see her, hear her moaning? Why? It felt like he stopped and there was nothing there. If he had hit her, wouldn't he have seen her there? But, how then did her scarf get tangled in his tires? I mean, there's the thought of maybe Adam got there before Delia actually got hit. But I don't see, that can't even be possible because the scarf was in the tires and he hit something and it wasn't the dog. He has the missing headlight. And I just don't know. And I don't know, is it possible that Nikki could fit into this somehow? I have so many questions. The largest of which is, how long is Y&R going to drag out this maudlin storyline before we can just get some freaking answers and move on? Instead of connecting with his wife and his family, Billy is wanting to connect with other people who have been through a similar loss. So he's on message boards and forums and blogs, trying to talk to other people and gravitating toward other people who want vengeance for their loss. And Billy is fully in the mind frame that he's going to take matters into his own hands. We saw him get a gun last week, and then this week he goes to the firing range with his gun. This is a genius move, Billy. What could go wrong? Going all vigilante justice could end up getting Billy thrown in jail for murder. He could go to prison forever and never see his son again. Oh, it's totally grief-driven and such a monumentally bad idea. Oh, that scene of Billy in the gun range just firing off rounds of vengeance. It was chilling. I have to tell you, Billy Miller is rocking it right now. He's probably one of the best things that's coming out of this whole storyline. He is amazing. And I heard this rumor, actually I saw it on a website called Daytime Confidential. Do you remember a couple of months ago when there was these casting rumors. Y&R was casting someone named Andrew Abbott, and it kind of seemed like, oh, we were gonna get a new cousin or something onto the scene, and I couldn't quite figure out how that was gonna piece in, but Daytime Confidential is reporting that that was actually just a smokescreen because Billy Miller is in contract negotiations, and Y&R was maybe shopping around for a recast. Can you believe that? I mean, Billy Miller is Billy at this point. Do you remember the original Billy? David Tommy was Heather Tom's little brother, and I thought, well, nobody could replace that, but I mean, Billy Miller has definitely come in. He embodies the role fully. That would be a really hard role to refill. So let's hope that doesn't happen. I hope he's able to re-sign, but again, Billy Miller has a really good potential for a primetime career as well, so hopefully they won't be able to steal him away. All right, so Victoria and Jill have been trying to connect with Billy, try to convince him to get some help, and he eventually does go with Victoria to a support group. And when they're there, they end up listening to a story by a woman who had a very similar situation happen to her. Her son was killed in an auto accident, I believe, when he was 7. So it really is the same age as Delia. So this is something that Billy finally is able to connect into. He's able to connect into her rage over this, the fact that she feels no one paid for the death of her son. This woman has lost her son and also revealed that it was that situation that caused ultimately the loss of her marriage too, which bodes very ominous for Billy and Victoria's relationship. They did come home after this group meeting, and they were able to share just a few precious moments together on the couch, connecting, just talking about how they miss each other. This situation that's happened with Delia has killed any type of intimacy between them, and certainly not just sex, but touching and holding. And Victoria she confides in him that she really misses that, and they begin to have just a little bit of light kissing on the couch. She says, "Can we just go upstairs and can you just hold me like you used to?" And he says, "Yes. I'm gonna be upstairs in a second. I got a couple things I need to take care of." Victoria goes upstairs, and Billy has to pull out his gun and hide it. Like he's hidden it high up in the closet. I don't see how Billy, an eye for an eye, is going to help anything. And another brilliant point that Patricia made in her voicemail to me last week is that Billy has driven drunk so many times, we're sure. How easy would it have been for him to end up hitting somebody's kid, I mean, a child or an adult, and that would be a life-changing moment. So you would think that Billy would have some level of empathy at all, like it's something that maybe could have happened to anyone. Delia shouldn't have been in the street in that night. She shouldn't have been there. And Patricia made, again, just another brilliant point that Billy's getting the gun is a selfish act for him to avoid taking responsibility in his own daughter's death. He has now, he could be focusing on the fact that he's the one that left her in the car, that he's the one that set this chain of events into motion. But instead, he's focusing on getting back at this unknown, faceless person. And it does seem a little bit like he's trying to avoid his own guilt by focusing on that. I just think that's such a interesting point. Now, Billy is, on these message boards, leaving notes about how he feels, and Adam is online, finds one of Billy's messages, and has to post a response saying something about how maybe the person that did this to you is paying. Well, that's so risky for Adam, for one thing, and I don't think it's going to, like a one line, maybe the person is paying, is going to change Billy's or anybody else's mind who's in that mindset already. Billy sees the message and pretty much says, no, that person hasn't paid yet, but they're going to. Somebody's going to get shot. last week, Jack and Jill asked Devon if he would be willing to go and be a mole for them, get in at Newman Enterprises, get Victor's secrets, and then ultimately betray him. But Devon refuses. He doesn't want to get caught up in this mess, and he feels like Victor has done absolutely nothing to him. Plus, the fact that Hillary is involved with Jack and Jill's plan just really turns Devon off. And just a quick note about Hillary, because another brilliant point Patricia made this week. Patricia, you were speaking to me this week. Hillary. Just about Hillary. Patricia's kind of reeling me in on this because my instinct is to not like Hillary. She was brought on as a bad girl, but we talked a little bit about second chances this week, and there was a scene between Jill and Hillary, and Hillary called Jill out a little bit. Jill was being very chastising, and Hillary said, you know, you've had plenty of second chances. All I'm asking for is a second chance. And Patricia, maybe Hillary does deserve a second chance from me, so I'm going to try to reset my clock and open myself up to Hillary, although I'm still reserving a certain percentage of my brain for the fact that she may betray us again. But, I mean, when you boil it all down, who in Genoa City is pure? I mean, Patricia brought up the fact that Kane faked his own death and was convincing Lily that he was a ghost for a while. How horrible is that? So I guess let he who is without sin cast the first stone in Genoa City. Now, back to Devon. I am kind of loving the idea of Devon rubbing elbows with Victor. Does anybody else love Victor and Devon as like being new BFFs? I want to see Devon and Victor like go fishing, maybe do some bowling together, maybe running through a field, skipping, holding hands. I just think they're so funny. They're such an odd couple. But the problem is, Devon hasn't been burned by Victor yet. Devon feels that Victor's done nothing to him, so he has no reason to strike. But all Devon has seen is Victor's good side. He really has not experienced any of the bad version of Victor yet, but we all know he will. It won't be very long before Victor's true self is revealed. At the military event, Devon is talking to Jack, and he says, why don't you back off? You know, what is the point of this? Obviously, my grandmother wanted Victor to have the company, so why don't you just respect her wishes and back off? And then Devon saunters off. Not before he writes a big fat check, by the way, to Nikki's cause. Mason sees that and has to kiss his butt a little bit. As soon as Devon starts throwing down money, Mason is being real extra nice. Oh, Jack is struggling. He wants so badly to keep his family together. Connor had called into my voicemail this week and mentioned, I mean, Jack has been through so much within this past year. He needs something to hold on to. And in some ways, maybe Jack's rivalry with Victor has been the only constant in his life. So there's definitely a lot of sympathy for Jack that I'm feeling too. Now, if Devon won't cooperate, though, to get back at Victor, Kyle is sort of lurking in the background and wanting to help his father, and he offers his services to be the mole, and Jack is not having it. Jack does not want to use his family in the Victor feud the way Victor does. But Kyle is not taking no for an answer. He ends up meeting Hillary for the first time and kind of conspiring behind Jack's back, getting the lowdown on what their plan is, and Kyle ends up taking it upon himself to go to Victor and ask for a job. It was so transparent that Kyle was up to something. Victor was suspicious immediately. As if Kyle could just walk in and pull the wool over the Grand Poobah's eyes without a second thought. Victor is going to chew him up and spit him out, and that is exactly why Jack didn't want Kyle involved in the first place. Aw, there were some happy moments this week too, some lighter moments. Finally, Lily and Kane totally did it in the steam room. They christened that room. Let me tell ya, it was kind of great. Like, I don't even know when the last time we had a sex scene on the show was. I firmly believe that the new writers took over and they were like, all right, agenda item number 1, more sex scenes. Or at least that's what I would do if I was writing. I mean, people don't watch daytime to cry every day. We want the love, we want the romance, and we want the sex. So more sex. I petition you, YNR. It was very hot. It was very steamy, wink, wink. But it was also like very gross to be the guy that walked in on him afterward. I mean, Kane locks the door and saunters on up to her like, yeah, don't worry, the door's locked. They do it, and then just as they're sort of finishing up, this guy walks in, and Lily's like, oh my God, you said the door was locked. That guy just took one look and turned right back around. I would imagine he would have gone and like reported that. I probably would have. I know that's so bad, but that's kind of gross. Like, it's kind of gross to do that in a public room. Like, other people are going to come and sit on that. You know, Kane maybe end up having an illegitimate baby out of all of this. I don't want to come in and sit in other people's sex juice. That's just, I like to see it. I like the idea, but I'm just going to hope they put down a towel or something. Oh my goodness. Well, there was also another cute moment between Leslie and Neil. Leslie decides to set up a romantic evening for Neil. She makes him mom's meatloaf, lights a bunch of candles, and while they're waiting for the meatloaf to get finished, they fall asleep and the meatloaf burns like hell. In the oven, the alarms are going off, and she comes out and shows the rock of charcoal she just cooked for Neil, and she's totally embarrassed. It's kind of funny because it turned into like a Victoria-style disaster. Remember Victoria? Every time she would try to cook, it would be like insane bad. And I kind of seem to remember that maybe Drew was cooking challenged too. I don't know. You guys probably remember better than me. I wonder. I seem to remember that though. But anyway, so she ruins the meatloaf, and Neil knows how much it meant to her. So he takes her to the club, and he reveals that he's given the recipe to the cook, and they're gonna make mom's meatloaf for her. Kind of cute. I enjoyed it, but at the same time, in the shadow of the Lily and Kane scenes, Neil and Leslie need to get it on soon. Like, sometimes it feels more like they're brother and sister or father and daughter than lovers. It's Abby's birthday. Yay. Jack, since Abby's an Abbott, wants to, well, Abby's both an Abbott and a Newman, but Jack wants to throw her a birthday dinner, bring the family together, Tracy, and just have kind of a nice moment. Kyle, bring the Abbotts back into that dining room like we saw last week, and it was kind of sad that she had to turn him down because she wants to spend time with Tyler. She's an adult. She wants to have, her own private birthday plans. Family birthdays not as high on the priority list. And actually, Victor has his own idea for his daughter's birthday. And he's at the athletic club. He runs into Tyler. Victor and Tyler have had, I believe, their first interactions this week. First, it was at the Veterans Day event, and it was just fine. They were perfectly nice to each other. But then they had a tense meeting at the athletic club, and Victor pretty much tells Tyler, it's my daughter's birthday. I'm going to spend some time with her, regardless of what your plans are, and I'm not going to have your interference with what my grand plan is. And there was also this totally bold statement by Victor saying, he knows everything that happened with Tyler's family, so he should know the importance of family. I couldn't even believe that Victor brought up everything that happened with Tyler's family. Like, basically, I know that your dad was accused of killing your mom and then went to jail forever, and then I know your story, okay? And family first. Ooh. Can't believe you brought that up. Rude. So Abby ends up showing up, and Victor's there, Tyler's there. I'm sure Victor wished that Tyler wasn't there at all. And he hands Abby this beautifully wrapped big red box. It looked gorgeous, like plush. Like, ooh, what's inside of that box? Could it be a gorgeous diamond necklace? Could it be some kind of rare antique? Abby opens it up, and it's, I don't know what to call it, a placard, I guess. It's a little, one of those things that sits on your desk. It says the buck stops here, but only Abby's said, Abigail Newman, VP of Lifestyles, Vice President of Lifestyles. So it's basically a job offer. He wants her to come and work at Newman Enterprises, and he's going to give her this very high title. And Abby says, well, what about my job at Jabot? And Victor just totally brushes it off, says, forget about that. You're now going to be a vice president of Lifestyles. Lifestyles is Victoria's pet project. It's perfect for you. Guess what? You're doing this now. Your plans, who cares? It's so presumptuous of Victor, not to mention the fact that a job offer is not a birthday gift. I feel like that says it all right there. He's all about nepotism. It's not, oh, you've earned this vice presidency. She's been working there for how long? You've earned this vice presidency. It's about, I want you under my control. If Victor can give you that vice presidency, he can take it away just as quickly, and he probably would. And Abby, to her credit, realizes that. She realizes that taking a job with Victor has strings, and she turns him down flat. I don't blame her at all. I probably wouldn't have taken it either. Do you guys remember when Victor used to be likable? It feels like it's been so long. Anyway, finally, Abby and Tyler get to have their private birthday celebration, only it wasn't quite so private. Tyler, oh Lord, has set up a dinner, a 5-star fancy schmancy dinner in the middle of Chancellor Park. Oh Lord, Gary left me a voice message this week, like, really? Chancellor Park again? I am telling you, we need to count the amount of scenes at Chancellor Park now. It was novel at first. I was like, yay, Chancellor Park, this is so great. Great way to honor Catherine's memory. Now everything is there all the time. It is our most seen set. We need to see it from a different angle. I love them being outside, but it's kind of getting old. We need to start a drinking game or something. Every time there's a scene with Chancellor Park next week, take a swig. I don't drink, so I'm going to leave that up to you guys, and we'll let you get bombed on Chancellor Park drinking games. We should at least count. It's so ridiculous. Setting up this supposedly quiet, fancy dinner in the middle of Genoa City's busiest, most happening park. It's the most happening place in Genoa City. I am telling you, I would be so embarrassed to sit out there and eat in the middle of the park like that, with the joggers and the junkies going through in the background. I mean, I don't know about the parks in your town, but mine aren't so nice. And Genoa City, as we are realizing, has a growing drug problem. That's probably where Fenn and Raven are hanging out. Raven might peek her head out of the corner while they're having their little 5-star meal. Ugh. But anyway, they're trying to have a romantic evening, and the entire time, Tyler is getting a million missed calls from Mariah. I assume it's Mariah Carey. Wouldn't that be great if it actually turned out to be Mariah Carey? I can see why I would be so hung up on her. But he's not answering the phone calls. He's trying to move on with his life. When Abby sees that he's got all these missed calls from Mariah, she tells him, call her back. I'm feeling a little more confident. Call her back, see what it is. He decides to do so. He calls Mariah back. She says she wants to get back together, but he keeps telling her no. He's moved on twice since then. Why wasn't she blowing up his phone when he was trying to move on with Lily? He probably would have got back together with her. So it's been a while. I don't know why all of a sudden she's sniffing around again, but can't seem to live without him. As the grand finale to Abby's birthday surprise, Tyler sets up a little tiny telescope on their table at the park and has Abby look through it, and he's like, oh, do you see that star up there? And she's like, yeah, well, it's yours. And he hands her a little scroll. He basically has bought her a star. Which is the The lamest gift ever. I mean, yeah, that would be great if she was 9 years old. Ooh, a star, that's so fancy. I mean, it's the biggest scam gift. I can't even believe it. Please don't anybody ever buy me a star. I was expecting, maybe you guys were too, I don't know, for Tyler to buy Abby an engagement ring. If you're gonna buy Abby Newman something sparkly, it better be a diamond, son. Summer comes to visit Fen in jail, and he tells her that he remembers pulling the trigger on Carmine, but he doesn't remember what led up to it. Is that new information? Was he lying, or did I miss that? Because I thought Fen remembered nothing about that night. Now all of a sudden he remembers pulling the trigger, so Fen did kill Carmine? Or he thinks he killed Carmine? I don't know. Maybe you guys can enlighten me about that. I think Summer was way more interested by the fact that Fen told her about Courtney's drug use. He sort of mentioned just the fact that, there's a lot of kids that have drug problems, and happens to be that Courtney's one of them, that she does pills or something. So when Summer leaves the jail, she ends up confronting Courtney, and later on, so does Noah, as a matter of fact. I mean, Courtney just dodges. She dodges the drug issue with Summer. She dodges the family issue with both of them. Noah wants to know why she hasn't, Summer didn't tell Noah about the drugs, but he wants to still know why she's being so secretive about her family, and she just is trying to avoid it at all costs. So there seems to be some deep, dark secrets going on there. Paul is still on the Carmine case. He's decided to go over the evidence again and again. The crime scene photos are missing, but now he found this napkin at the athletic club that was not too far from Carmine's body with DNA on it that belonged to Lauren. I guess it was her lipstick or something, and he confronts her about this, and Lauren's like, Carmine probably picked it up as a memento. I probably wiped my lipstick on it. Carmine picked it up as a memento, which is totally possible. That makes sense to me. We're so far from Carmine's shooting, and there's been so little development on it that I don't even remember. I mean, I seem to think that by the time Lauren got out to the alley, Carmine was already dead. So I have no idea what the napkin symbolizes. I really don't know. Maybe it's just a way of Paul realizing that Lauren is lying exactly about what's going on. He does tell Lauren, look, I am your friend, but I am also the DA first, and I will find the truth. Whatever it is that you're hiding, I will find the truth. It's a constant struggle for Paul. He walks away from Lauren, and Lauren gets yet another mystery hang-up phone call. Carmine is totally still alive, right? There's no way around it at this point. Now, very, very interesting development. I think this is fairly fresh, fairly new. Tristan Rogers, the actor who played Colin, is coming back to the show. So Colin is returning to Genoa City. Now, this has implications, of course, with Jill and Kane and Lily, but there is just a part of me that says, is there any chance he could somehow be connected in with this Carmine storyline because of the mob thing? I think that Carmine has got to still be alive. His mob connections to help get him out and helped him fake the death and bliggity blah. And I just can't help but wonder if Colin could be somehow connected to Carmine. That's just my theory. But either way, very interesting that actor's coming back. In jail, Michael has finally gotten a meeting with the warden, and he has told the warden that he would like to become an informant in exchange for a reduced sentence for Fen. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to get close to even though I'm the former district attorney and everybody knows that, I'm going to go in and get close to the prisoners and try to provide you with evidence that'll help you solve your unsolved crimes. Now, Fen is still inside trying to acclimate. He is having this guy, his name was Womack, something Womack is his last name, and this guy is like hovering over him, giving him tips about how to survive in prison, and there was an implication that something went down and this guy protected Fen in some way. I don't understand why this guy is defending Fen, what he wants from him. It is way ominous. Back to Michael, lo and behold, the warden and Christine decide to take Michael's deal, and the first case that they'd like him to work on is Womack. This guy's connected to a couple of unknown, unsolved crimes, and they would really like to get information from him or on him, but the warden realizes that he's not going to confide in Michael, but he has taken an interest in Fen. So maybe Fen could be the one to ferret the information out of Womack. Well, as soon as Michael hears this, he's like, no freaking way. I am not going to let my son get involved in this. The whole point of this is to protect him, not put him in danger. But I have a feeling that somehow it's going to go through. I mean, it would be like way less dangerous for Fen to just stay in prison and serve out his sentence than to risk getting caught and labeled a snitch. Do you know what they do to snitches in prison? Okay, you guys, that is about the end for me. I'm glad to see that YNR is getting a little more cheery. There's a couple of little spots of light, and let's hope that that light continues to poke through. I'm definitely enjoying this week's show way more than I have the last couple of weeks, and I hope that you are too. Please feel free to leave me comments. I love hearing what all of your different thoughts are. You can write messages down in the YouTube comment section, or you can call and leave me a voicemail at area code 309-588-4569, or you can go to my website at yrchat.com. Whatever works for you works for me. I love hearing from you guys, and I'll see you next week. Mwah! Bye!